Hello, welcome to Upward Bound's introduction on how to get started with the scholarship application process. Please keep in mind this video is made in February of 2021, so some of the specific scholarships and deadlines we mention may not be available at the time you watch this video, but the tips will still apply. So let's get started onto our first slide with some information for you on some tips and hacks for starting the scholarship application process. So number one, and probably most beneficial, is to start early, to create a space in your schedule for working on scholarships and set a weekly goal for yourself.
Very important. Another thing you should do is read and understand the instructions, eligibility requirements, and deadlines so you don't waste your time on a scholarship you aren't qualified to receive. Very important as well.
Good point. So just a little bit of information is most applications require the same materials over and over again. So what we suggest is that you get them all together and uploaded onto your Google Drive and computer so you can access them easily and not waste a lot of time.
You can apply to as many scholarships that you are eligible for as you want, but most importantly, that can fit into your schedule.
The more you apply to, the more likely you are to get one. So just a little piece of information, most scholarships require an essay. So you may be able to adapt one essay for multiple scholarships. So don't just write something and not save it. Save it, make sure you can find it again, label it so that you know what the topic is, and you'll be able to access it again in the future. So be organized.
And don't ignore small scholarships. The bigger the scholarship, the more competition there is. So you're more likely to win smaller scholarships because fewer people apply for them, and those smaller scholarships will add up.
Absolutely. And kind of going with this, capitalize on other people's laziness. So like I said before, if a scholarship requires more work, like an essay, fewer people are likely to apply for it. So don't ignore a scholarship just because it requires an essay, especially if you are a good writer. So those will be worth your time if you actually do a good job.
Yes, and be careful, avoid scholarships that don't require any supporting documents. They are likely just lottery style, or they're just harvesting email addresses for spam mail. Keep an eye on that.
Yeah. So there'll be a lot of scholarships out there. They're like, just enter your name and email address, and it's so easy, and you're entered, and it's basically a sweepstakes.
It would be nice if it was that easy, but unfortunately it is not. So looking at scholarships, here are materials that you will see most likely over and over again for scholarship applications. So there is always going to be a deadline for scholarships. I don't think we have encountered a scholarship that is just running completely all year round. So most scholarships will have a deadline so that a committee can look at them and make decisions. Keep that in mind. A lot of scholarships require an essay that's anywhere from 300 to 750 words. And they also require something called a resume, something our students should be familiar with, which is just a one-sheet piece of information that has a list of everything that you have done in terms of extracurricular activities for school, what schools you go to, if you have had any jobs, just information about your student career. Other things you'll run into are recommendation letters. If you're a senior, you will probably be requesting recommendation letters from teachers for your college applications that you can use on scholarships. And other things would be high school transcripts. A lot of scholarships just have requirements that you have a certain GPA, and occasionally you'll need to provide some financial information. Most frequently, scholarships will ask for a report from the online financial aid form that's submitted to get financial aid for school from the U.S. Department of Education, which is called the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So all of these deadlines, an essay, a resume, letters of recommendations, transcripts, and financial information are the most common things that are asked for scholarships.
The reason that they ask for the financial information is sometimes scholarships are also based on financial need. They're not only based on academics. So you will have to provide those, especially for those kinds of scholarships. Okay, so we just mentioned in the previous slide that you'll have to write an essay. And I'm just going to give you a very brief introduction to how you might want to approach this. And there's definitely a lot more to know, but we want to start kind of thinking about it right now. So first, if we look at the infographic on the right, tips for writing a scholarship essay, the first thing is to know the audience. So who's reading this? Is it a charity foundation? Is it a sorority? Is it a bank? Is it your teacher at school? Who is reading it, and know how to write towards them. Next, it's really important to analyze the essay question. Make sure you understand what the question is asking and answer it in a concise, obvious way. Don't just ignore the question altogether. It should be answered specifically. Always be brainstorming. I think we talk a lot about that in English classes, that oftentimes your first idea is just that. It's one idea. There's a lot more that might come up if you spend some time thinking about it and talking about it with other people. So remember that additionally, this should be a good representation of your best qualities, right? So they want to give you a scholarship because you have earned something, you have something special about you, and you want to be positive and confident in your essays that you're writing. So make sure to show the best part of your thinking, the best part of your philosophies, the best part of your values. And then, of course, proofread, proofread, proofread. So these are all really, really important. Let me see if there's anything else I want to point out. Using action verbs is really important in all kinds of writing to make sure that they can see what you do, not just that you feel certain things, but that you actually have done things to show how you feel, right? Make the most of your words and get as close to the max word count as possible. So if you see that the maximum word count is 750, a 300-word essay is not going to cut it. You need to get right up there, and you need to write as much as they ask for. We also ask you to write an outline and the examples you want to include in the essay before you even start writing. You should have a teacher or a tutor review it and critique it. And try to be efficient if you can. If you can use the essay more than once, please do. And also consider if your personal statement might be able to be adapted for some of these, because you haven't sent them out. Your personal statement hasn't been sent out to these scholarships yet.
Mm-hmm. It's not cheating if you're using a personal statement you really worked hard for your college applications. You're just modifying it for all your scholarships as well.
Yeah, it does still have to answer the question. Certainly, if there's a question, sometimes they just ask for a sample of writing, in which case you won't have to modify, but other times they're asking a specific question.
So where do we find these applications? Well, first, think local. We mentioned this before, that national scholarships, like, for instance, the Coca-Cola scholarship, are extremely competitive because they open it up to the entire country. So statistically, if you're going against every senior student or junior student in America, it's going to be a lot easier to apply for scholarships within just Philadelphia. So think local, think Philly, think the Philly County area, think Pennsylvania scholarships. Use your network. So many religious institutions and organizations, social clubs, small businesses, maybe a place that you work at, large companies, they offer scholarships to students in their local area. So talk to your family and friends, see if you have any connections to these kinds of organizations. Additionally, talk to your teachers, guidance counselors, and coaches about scholarships that are targeted to students that attend your high school. Your teachers, guidance counselors, coaches, all those people at your school have probably been doing this for a while and probably know a lot of good scholarships that students apply to at your school. Connect with other students who are applying to scholarships and share your finds. So it doesn't have to be such a solitary, like, oh, I have to apply to all these scholarships and write this essay. If your friends are also going through the same thing, share your resources, help each other out. And lastly, use online scholarship banks to look for local scholarships. So there are online scholarship search engines and websites, such as ones we're about to go over, that have just lists of scholarships that you might be eligible for. So let's move on and give an example.
So we have kind of pulled together some scholarship resources for Upward Bound students that we have shared with all of our students on the Google Drive. There's a copy of this in your folder that you can use and you can edit and you can add things you find. You can take away scholarships you're not eligible or interested in, and you can kind of use it as your own working document. We have it arranged here by deadlines. So we have February deadlines, March deadlines, April, May. And of course, actually there are scholarships that go into June and July. We're just not putting them all in this document. We'll update you. So, these have links, and these are all scholarships that students have applied to in the past through Upward Bound, and many of them have been successful in getting these scholarships. They are all local. So they do kind of think about that starting local first thing. So at the bottom, you'll see there's two different that passed the May deadline. We have one for scholarships for full-time at CCP. There's a new scholarship called the Cato Scholarship. And I would urge all students who are considering going to the Community College of Philadelphia to take a look at this scholarship. There's a lot of benefits, including tuition, including extra supports, books, travel money, a lot of things that are there for you from the city of Philadelphia. And then finally, on this page, which Mr. Joe is going to show you a little bit more about, is a scholarship bank for local scholarships called the Philadelphia Foundation. There's a lot of scholarship banks out there, sort of like College Board has one, College Greenlight has one, there's FastWeb. Those are all great resources too. They just have a ton of things on them, and it can be a little overwhelming to just start with just like, oh my gosh, there's so many scholarships available. How do I even get started? How do I pick what's right for me? So this is a good opportunity to look at. There's just around 200 scholarships. So Joe, if you want to kind of talk through this slide.
Yeah, absolutely. So like it says on the slide, each year the Philadelphia Foundation awards more than 200 scholarships from funds that they manage, and that's just for the city of Philadelphia. So we can go online to the philafound.org, their website, and look at their scholarship bank, which we're going to in a moment. But things to note is that each scholarship will have individual criteria. It's not going to be the same requirements for every single scholarship just because it's on the same webpage. It will have a criteria, deadlines, and requirements, essentially is what I'm saying. Before applying, carefully review the information provided to make sure it's an appropriate one for you. So there will be specific ones for students of color. There will be specific ones for students in the workforce. There are just specific scholarships. The first time you select apply online, you'll be asked to create a free account that you can use to apply for all of the scholarships. Just for your general information, and then you can go into the specifics for each one. So let me pull that up real quick. That is what the website looks like. Apply for a scholarship. So we're going to scroll down and you'll see apply here, apply here. These are all the scholarships. So when you're scrolling through, it might seem a little overwhelming, but what we're going to do is we're just going to start at the top. We're going to make note of any deadlines. May 8th is a good deadline. That's pretty far from now. It's February right now. And you can click on the more detailed segment of each one to get all the requirements. So before we even do that, you can see automatically that this specific nursing school scholarship is open for high school seniors and undergraduate college students. So if you're a high school senior, you're eligible. If you're wanting to go into nursing, you're eligible. And they will tell you things like major required. Obviously, if you are getting a nursing scholarship, you might want to go into nursing. The amount of the scholarships, other requirements, so must demonstrate financial need, must be a resident of the greater Philadelphia region, preference given to an applicant who is related to or sponsored by a HUP alumni. So if you have anyone in your family that somehow went to the University of Pennsylvania for nursing, or just working in that hospital, you're eligible. And then application materials needed. So we mentioned this before, transcript, that's always going to be one of them. College/university acceptance letter, if applicable. So this is a requirement we didn't go over, but some scholarships will ask like, hey, before we give you a scholarship, did you get accepted to the institution? Financial aid award letter or recent school bill, that kind of goes along with the financial forms that they might ask for. A copy of the FAFSA report, so that's your federal student aid application. a resume, 2 recommendation letters, and a sponsor form if applicable. So it's going to be very similar requirements for each of these applications, but they are going to differ depending on each one. Let's see. So the second one is for high school seniors graduating from Thomas A. Edison or Benjamin Franklin High School. Well, hey, we serve Benjamin Franklin High School. So those of you graduating from Ben Franklin are very eligible for the scholarship. So again, you check out the major, the amount of the award. It's 2 1,000 one-time scholarships. That's pretty great. That's not nothing at all. Other requirements, transcripts needed, essay, recommendation letter. So that's just what you'll be doing for the Philadelphia Foundation. It has all the information. You're going to make a free account. You're going to apply as much as you can, and you're going to ask us for support with anything you might need.
Just a note on there. So that last scholarship said it's a one-time scholarship. So some scholarships you might just get it one time. Sometimes you'll have to renew. It might be available to you each year of college. So that's something you'll find out as you're reading through these scholarships and seeing what they're worth. And like the one before that was $500 to $5,000. Well, I mean, if you get $600, that would be amazing, right? So all of these things will start to add up. We're not always only trying to get $5,000 or full scholarships. We're trying to get nice little chunks of money that will add up to a lot of savings from student loans in the future.
Yeah, if you end up getting 5 scholarships that are all worth $800, that's $4,000. That's a really substantial amount of money.
So if we could go back to the slideshow, this is a great resource. I would bookmark this if I were a senior in high school trying to, or a junior in high school, honestly, who wanted to get started early. We're going to pull out some of the scholarships that we have mentioned on our Google Drive. Some of them we have found from the Philadelphia Foundation. Some of them are just things we know about. So this first example is Delta Sigma Theta. Delta Sigma Theta is a sorority. It is a national sorority. It's one of the Divine Nine, right? So this is a scholarship specifically from the Philadelphia Alumni Chapter. So we talked about national organizations having specific Philadelphia region scholarships, and this is one of them. So it is goes to students, the minimum requirement. So of course, if you have more than this, that's awesome. You have to apply to a college. You have to have at least a B average, a 3.0, and you have to go to a Philadelphia County high school. So this is one where you don't necessarily have to go to the Philadelphia School District. It just has to be in our county. They're asking for school transcripts. They're asking for a statement of your educational goals. So this is 300 words or less. So like going by our advice, get it up to at least 250, right? You need 3 letters of recommendation here. So that's a little bit more than probably most of them. No family members. SAT or ACT, if you have them, parent or guardian would need to describe some financial need in a short little topic, a little essay. And then it just says that you have to be truthful in all of your application materials. So this has a deadline of February 20th. They have a place where you ask any questions you might have. You can also do an interview. So that's an option for a lot of scholarships, is that you actually might get a chance to go in and talk a little bit about yourself.
And at the end there, so a lot of these scholarships will have some sort of contact information. If there's something that we don't know and can't help with, we will always email out, reach out. They are usually responsive. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Let's see. So Urban League of Philadelphia. So the Urban League has scholarships that support specifically Philadelphia high school seniors pursuing post-secondary through college, university, or a trade school. So let's look at the requirements. You have to be attending a Philadelphia high school, so it has to be within the district, it seems. They're asking for a resume, an application, a transcript, signed media release and consent, 2 letters of recommendation, an essay, your GPA. So things that we have been seeing a lot frequently. Like we mentioned, you're going to see these things for pretty much every application. And if we look at the deadline, that's February 25th, 2021. One thing to point out is that sometimes with scholarships, you'll have to follow up once or twice, depending on if there are other requirements, such as proof of enrollment at the 2 or 4 year university, college, or trade school that you decide to go to.
Can I give a little anecdote about that? So one of our students, there's a South Philadelphia High School alumni scholarship. So any of our students who attend South Philadelphia High School, talk to your guidance counselor, find out about that scholarship. And one of the requirements is that you then send a thank you letter once you receive the scholarship. So every year you send a thank you letter to the Alumni Association so that they know that you're connecting with it and that you are like appreciative of the alumni of South Philadelphia High School who are providing that scholarship for you. So here's another example. This is the Anna M. Vincent Scholarship. So for this one, it's kind of cool because you start out with doing a little eligibility like quiz online. So it tells you right away if you're eligible. So if you're not, then you wouldn't go through the whole process. Then you do an online application. So there's a lot of instructions. You have to give your parents' most recent tax return, like we talked about, transcripts. You're going to have a letter of recommendation. This one though, the way they do letters of recommendation is that they'll send it, like if you put me, for instance, you put my email address and they would send me a link and I would upload it to them. Or I could fill out a little form. I can't remember exactly. So then so you should let your recommenders know beforehand so that they know to expect that email. And then you get to do a personal interview for this one, which is kind of interesting. It would probably be over Zoom at this point. And then you will be chosen, right? So they'll let you know. So it's an interesting scholarship that we've had students apply for in the past, and I think it's something very worthwhile.
Yeah, and it's a scholarship that students have gotten.
Yeah.
Definitely attainable.
So those are just some examples. There's a lot of scholarships out there. And there's probably scholarships we haven't even heard of or mentioned that might be available to you. So I would love to hear what you're doing and kind of have you get started on the process. So what's next? Look at our Google Drive. Find the scholarships that you're interested in. Talk with your high school guidance counselor to find out the school-specific ones. I think every senior should apply to minimum 3 scholarships that you're qualified for. You owe yourself that. You owe, yourself the opportunity to try. And I think it's worth it. It's worth your time.
It's really not too much effort. You, at this point, will have all the pieces already. It's just a matter of sending it off.
Yes, absolutely. Review the application materials needed and gather all of those documents, just like we talked about. Begin working on all of the required essays. Maybe make yourself a Google document that has the questions that you want to answer and start working on it. Put it all in one document. And then schedule an appointment with your Upward Bound tutor or teacher to review your essay and the other materials and get to work. I can say those students who are serious about scholarships and put in the time and effort have been rewarded in the past for that. And there's really, it's completely up to you, and it's completely up to how much time and effort you want to put into it. But the more time and the more effort you put in, the more likely you are to succeed and get those dollars to add up to helping you pay for your college education, which is very important to you, very important to your parents, very important to future you who's going to have to pay back loans. So do yourself a favor, put in some work right now to ease some of that burden in the future.
We know that scholarships can sometimes be a stressful process, but when you have such amazing people behind you to help, it'll be a cinch. We're here for you.
Yeah, so good luck. Parting words of advice: stay organized, meet your deadlines, and just know that you have support, and we're here to help you do the best you can in this process.
Good luck, everyone.